Welcome. The purpose of the presentation is to provide some more information around the approval of the Brant Community Healthcare System to proceed with stages 1 and stages 2 of planning for a new hospital. On March 9th, 2022, the Government of Ontario approved the Brant Community Healthcare System to proceed with stages 1 and stages 2 of the Ministry of Health capital planning process. To complete this work, the Brant Community Healthcare System received a planning grant of $2.5 million. The Ministry of Health has a 5-stage planning process. The first stage is the pre-capital submission. This was submitted on February 2020, and its development was overseen by the Master Planning Steering Committee. The Brant Community Healthcare System was approved on March 9th, 2022, to complete stages 1 and stages 2 of planning for a new hospital. As you can see from the guide diagram, to get to stage 1 requires government approval to plan. We are at the end of stage 4 for project 1 of the emergency department redevelopment. Stage 4 is the tender document stage. The tender documents will be completed in April, and once approved by the Ministry of Health, we will be able to put the tender out to market. What happens in stage 1 and stage 2? In plain language, in stage 1 and stage 2, we have to detail everything that is required in the hospital for the next 30 years. This includes detailing the programs and services that will be required, the planned volumes of the programs and services, the number of beds required, the component space requirements, that is, a detailed listing of every room with its associated square footage. We will have to complete architectural block schematics, locating services in the new building and the redeveloped space, and describing the function and flow of users. Identifying the location of the building on the site and describing the new construction, phasing and renovation plan and demolition phasing plan is also part of the requirement. There are a number of engineering studies and reports that are required, such as traffic studies, as an example. The planning will require engagement from all areas of the organization. This will be obtained through service and department-specific user groups. We also have retained planning and architectural consultants to lead this work on behalf of the Brant Community Healthcare System. We will also have to engage our municipal partners in this phase of planning. The Ministry of Health specifies the planning parameters for the project in a project agreement. While not exhaustive, the following are the key planning parameters in the funding agreement with the Ministry of Health. There are high-level considerations, including the establishment of a vision for services and facilities in the long term, that is for the next 30 years. As well, planning must leverage existing hospital assets and ensure future adaptability. Bed and service volume projections must be consistent with the health-based allocation methodologies for hospitals in the catchment area. Finally, we need to ensure integration with other healthcare delivery channels, including what programs and services can be integrated at the local level, and ensuring alignment with regional and provincial programs. There is a requirement that we work collaboratively with community health services, primary care, and patients to create a patient-centric care continuum, ensure culturally appropriate care, and improve the patient experience. There is also a requirement that we optimize technology to support patients in the hospital, but as well in the community. The project will be located at the existing Brantford General Hospital site and the Willett site. In identifying the preferred option, the Board of Directors, in consultation with the Master Planning Steering Committee, was guided by the Ministry of Health direction that the hospital develop a plan that would retain recent investments in the infrastructure at the Brantford General site. The proposed plan for the redevelopment of a new hospital meets these criteria. This facilitated approval to move the project forward in a timely basis. In addition to retaining the use of previous investments in hospital infrastructure, The steering committee and board of the hospital considered the current location of the Brantford General Site and its proximity to the city's core and Highway 403 as ideal. In terms of what will be located at each site, the following is based on the preliminary planning done in the pre-capital submission phase. This may change in stages 1 and stages 2 of planning. At the Brantford General Site, the pre-capital submission identified the need for a new 9-story tower housing 445 beds, a more than doubling of the current square footage to over 1.1 million square feet. This was based on conservative planning projections to 2038, using conservative planning projections of the Ministry of Finance. In stage 1, we will expand the planning horizon to 30 years and incorporate population planning projections based on local experience. This means the required beds and facility size will most likely be larger. The Willett site will also be redeveloped. The pre-capital submission identified 52 beds, chronic disease clinics, dialysis outpatient care, diagnostic services, outpatient rehabilitation, and educational and support spaces. This will be revisited in stage 1 and stage 2 of planning. This aerial shot demonstrates the centrality of the existing hospital site to major transportation routes and its centrality in relation to the core of the city. The diagram shows one concept of how the site might be laid out. This will be finalized in stage 1 and stage 2. At the top of the diagram, the bidirectional arrow is located on St. Paul's Avenue. The blue overshaded areas is building that will be retained. That is D and C towers, which are in good condition and part of our existing infrastructure. The D wing was opened in 2003. The B wing will be retained, but it will not be used for acute inpatient care. The orange section shows the new build. At the pre-capital submission phase, this was envisioned as a 9-story patient tower. As planning advances through stage 1 and stage 2, it is expected that this will go through several iterations. The white overshaded areas are areas that will be demolished. This includes the E wing, H building, and surrounding buildings, and the A wing, including the area housing the dialysis unit and chapel. Again, this will be revisited in stage 1 and stage 2 of planning. Tiered parking is contemplated. The site will have future capacity to expand. Since this conceptualization, the hospital has acquired additional surrounding lands. This schematic provides another view of the site. The purple bidirectional arrow is on St. Paul Avenue. The red shaded buildings are existing buildings D, C, and B, which will be retained. The areas of demolition identified previously have been removed from this schematic. As shown, this creates an open site. The blue area represents new construction. Again, this may be revised and refined in stage 1 and stage 2 of planning as we contemplate site impacts and construction phasing. We are very advanced in planning our new emergency department. It has been divided into 2 projects. These 2 projects represent the start of the modernization of the Brant Community Healthcare System. The estimated cost for the emergency department redevelopment is $25 million. This construction project has been made possible through a construction grant from the Ministry of Health and funds raised by the Brant Community Healthcare System Foundation. The ministry funds 90% of construction costs, but the local community must raise 10% of the construction cost and raise all of the funds required for furniture and equipment that goes within the space. In the diagram, this slide shows some gray areas, and these represent our existing emergency department. In Project 1, this area remains relatively untouched. The areas in color represent the work of Project 1, which is new space for the emergency department. This includes treatment areas, waiting room, a new clinical decision unit and support space, and a new Indigenous space. Project 2 involves renovating the existing emergency department. This will occur in several phases. In the end, we'll have a large new emergency department that will meet the needs of the community well into the future. While we are modernizing our buildings, we are also modernizing our equipment. In the next fiscal year, we are purchasing $10 million of capital equipment. We are investing in 3 new X-ray rooms at the Brantford site and also purchasing a new interventional suite. This equipment currently is 20 years old and at end of life. We are also purchasing other equipment, such as computers on wheels, to replace our aging stock. Through the generous support of the Brant Community Healthcare System, we are also upgrading our X-ray room at the Willett site. This will have a project cost of an estimated $750,000, of which the Brant Community Healthcare System is contributing, a foundation is contributing $350,000 in financial support. We are also installing a new CT scanner. This will be the second CT scanner at the Brantford General Hospital site. Again, this was made possible through the generous donations from the Brant Community Healthcare System Foundation. We are also renovating an area on the 4th floor of the Brant Community Healthcare System B Tower for our pediatric acute care referral service. This will provide further enhancements to the care of children at the Brant Community Healthcare System. Again, this is another project being supported through generous donations received by the Brant Community Healthcare System Foundation. Thank you for taking the few minutes to listen to this presentation. Hope that it was informative. If you have further questions, please go to rbchs.ca.